Up next is Dr. Francois Villinger. He's going to talk about HIV and the brain in the area of heart, H-A-A-R-T.
All right. Well, good afternoon. I'll confess that I see the brain as an organ that's immune privileged as an immunologist, and that's about the extent of my work with the brain. So just a quick reminder, HIV is one of the major killers still in the world, and even in the US we still have over 1 million people who are infected. Now, we don't really have a vaccine still, however, there's been progress over the past 15 years in the development of antiretroviral treatment, which really allows you to do a number of treatment, post-exposure prophylaxis, etc., as well as prevention of infection. However, well, we have now a real armamentarium of drugs that, I'm sorry, that was supposed to be out, but, okay, let me see if I can advance that. All right, here we go. We have an armamentarium of drugs that really target a lot of the different processes of the virus replication cycle. None of these drugs alone or in combination can eradicate the virus, and of course the treatment is relatively expensive. So this is the illustration of viral loads in the blood. Acute infection, you have a peak, you have this control, you put them on ART, it's controlled. However, you stop ART, and the virus comes back, and you get, again, diseases. But ART has certainly made the HIV as a more manageable infection over the time being. Now, for the CNS, however, not all drugs are equal, and so this is a series of drugs that penetrates the blood-brain barrier fairly easily, the other ones much less. So clearly not as good a treatment for the CNS infection. So what happened before ART, you had a lot of HIV encephalitis. Now that we have these treatments, the disease has really changed to a lot less of this, but you still have the proportion of neurological syndrome stays the same in HIV infection, whether treated or not, but you really go to this type of more insidious neurocognitive impairments, etc. So this is just, I don't want to read all that, it's just different stages that are in there. It's not an easy disease to really document. So what happens in the brain? HIV retargets HIV T cells, CD4 T cells in the blood, but in the brain it's all about macrophages, microglia, monocytic lineages. And the problem with these cells are long-lived. Astrocytes and other ones are fairly long-lived, so it's a reservoir of constantly infected cells, and if the drug doesn't penetrate, of course it's difficult to limit HIV replication or production of HIV proteins there. And so what happens when the virus produces these proteins, a number of them, like the envelope, TAT, or VPR, are toxic, is directly to some of these things, or you get macrophage activated, causing this neuronal degeneration, and a number of other processes that are disrupted. And this, so not all HIVs are made equal. So, for example, you have these different clades that are seen throughout the world, and some of them are less neurotoxic. So this is this was a model in a mouse where infected cells were given directly intracranially, and you can see that clade B that we have in Europe is more toxic than clade C, for example, from Africa. So what happens in the brain, you basically get a lot of the particular white matters that gets affected during HIV infection, whether it's treated or not, and you really get a regression of the white matter that you can see. This is a control right here. The cortical thickness really sort of decreases in people with HIV, whether treated again or not treated. This is a progressive decrease that we see. So back to monkeys and some the primate center. This is an experiment we did a while ago. African primates are infected with SIV, they don't get infected. We delete CD4 cells, virus decreases, but it comes right back as soon as you have some activated CD4 T cells. We don't delete macrophages. Go to Asian rhesus macaques, where we did the same thing. Well, these are the, sorry. These are the ones that were depleted, and you can see the viral loads didn't even go down, it continued. And what happened there, really, in this infection, was the virus didn't have any T cells to go for, well, it went for the macrophages and microglia that are infected right there in the brain. And guess what? We had encephalitis in these animals. So just to conclude, these are some of the things that we need to do. Still develop a number of predictive markers for HIV-associated neurocognitive disease, and design clinical trials with large enough number to really address that. And the other aspect for us is really developing better models to address these particular pathogenesis. And with that, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Villinger.